Welcome to the School of Wedding Photography. I'm here with Ian Weldon, a photographer based in the UK. Ian is famously known for being a photographer that photographs weddings, not a wedding photographer. His folio is completely unlike most wedding photography that you'd be familiar with. Ian photographed the wedding of Joana Pak and Steven Yeun, who plays my favourite character in The Walking Dead, Glen. Obviously no longer around. And Ian hosts a great photography podcast called Outerfocus, which you should definitely check out. Hi Ian, how are you?
Hey man, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Now look, let's just jump right in the deep end. What do you think of the wedding photography industry as it is today?
Right, that's a big question to start with, isn't it?
Yep.
What do I think of it? Well, I think it's the same as most other genres of photography. I would say that it's easy for people to become photographers these days, or to be perceived as photographers these days. And to be fair, I'm probably talking maybe about a year ago, because I've sort of pulled away from the industry, and I don't really have much to do with it, and I don't look at it that much anymore. And my old blog, all that stuff that was written maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, but maybe it's the same, that it's kind of oversaturated. And I feel that what drives the photography is popular trend, and not individuality, and not creativity. And that's just become this whole behemoth of an industry that people who are promoting a popular trend are now teaching a popular trend. The workshops, the industry has become more about workshops and teaching people how to be cool, rather than teaching people about photography. I suppose it's the same in all industries, really. You have not industries, genres, like street photography, landscape photography, travel photography, food photography. It's all the same, and we all have. Everybody wants to be, I suppose, famous quick, and I don't feel people are prepared, or most people aren't prepared to put that time and effort into, I don't know, to actually find who they are. And it's all about, it's all show and no go kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's still like that. Well, I suspect it is. But as I say, I've pulled away from quite a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is the alternative? If you don't want to subscribe to the sort of following trends model, like, what have you done?
Yeah. Well, it's my angle's from an interest in photography, not an interest in wedding photography, not an interest in being famous, not an interest in being part of the cool gang. I won't say that wasn't my motivation to start with, but as time went on, I felt that there were fewer and fewer things that I could connect with within the wedding industry and the photography industry. As we know it, through YouTube channels, through magazines, through the workshops, through brand ambassadors pushing a different agenda other than photography, and this whole idea that this rock star photography, I became less interested in that aspect of it and focused more on the photography. And I'm interested in the history of photography. I'm interested in the shoulders of the giants who we stand on. I'm interested in where photography came from. And I'm also interested, as far as I'm concerned, I'm interested in making more meaningful photographs. And if we look at, I've mentioned this before, that I'm looking through all of my work, my wedding photography over the last 7 years, for an exhibition, and it became apparent to me that, or the thought came that, how many wedding photographers could have a retrospective show of their work? I feel that I have a series of photographs, whereas a lot of people have nothing but a series of trends and a series of popular ideas within the wedding industry, and that only changes slightly over the years. So if you asked a wedding photographer to put a book together, I don't really think there'd be much diversity in there, or much real interest, other than spectacular wedding shots, or what was popular at the time. And I think that that's where the difference is. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because some people are just interested in running a business. They're interested in making money. But for me, it's about making photographs, man.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you mentioned that you need to put time in to find
Indeed.
this. Like, how long have you put into this? And how long do you think someone needs to actually work hard at finding their own voice before they find it?
Right. Well, I've been a photographer of sorts for 15 years. I didn't know anything for 5 years. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew what photography was, but I think that the idea of being a photographer was more important than actually being a photographer. So if people think I'm a photographer, or I tell people I'm a photographer, then I'm cool, man. You know, I'm an interesting person if I'm a photographer. And it like 5 years running around in circles, another couple of years deciding what it is that I was trying to do. And I suppose it wasn't really until I started photographing weddings and realized that I didn't want to photograph it in the way that it was traditionally done, that I started to look for another way to do it now. And that, I suppose, the wedding industry itself forced me to be a better photographer, because I didn't want to be the same as everything that I'd seen. And I didn't believe that there had to be some sort of timeline or rules or specific shots that I should get. And through my study into the history of photography, that gave me the freedom to go wherever I wanted and where I felt that I should be going as an artist. And 7 years of doing that, and I'm still not there, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
it's a lifetime thing too.
There is no, there is no end to it, man. There's no like, I can't say that, I've done it, I'm great, because I'm going through a period now where it's like, where do I go from here? How do I make my photographs better? And, you know, how do I make them more meaningful? And I think I'm getting to a point now where it's about making meaningful photographs, and it's about giving the people that I work for the best that I can give. But I'm at a point where I feel like what I really want to be doing now is contributing to photography itself. So it's not even about me or the subject anymore. It's about the contribution to photography and where that will take me in the future.
Yeah. Okay. So how does someone, if someone out there wants to do this, they don't want to follow trends, that maybe they're sick of them, or they feel that they need to be more true to themselves as an artist.
Yes.
How do they start doing that?
Stop listening to what other people say. Stop following wedding photography, being part of wedding photography groups on Facebook, because they're toxic. Look, do you know what, man? I can only say from my perspective and my point of view, and what I've done with my career as a photographer, is look at the history of photography and understand the philosophies and ideologies of the photographers that you're interested in. And I've said this many times before, that I've learned more about photography and myself as an artist by understanding the philosophies of other photographers, rather than looking at their pictures, because the pictures are a consequence of their ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
And their approach and their philosophy. So, and the same way that I see it, like people say, or ask me about my kind of aesthetic or style. And for me, it's all that is a consequence of my study and practice. It's not a goal. So people need to stop being concerned about what's popular, about first of all, what other photographers think, what other wedding photographers think, you know, because that doesn't matter. You know, the only way we can stand out is to be ourselves, and nobody is more unique than you as an individual.
How do you, I mean, you said something earlier about it's fine to follow trends if you just want to run a business. And I guess what I'm wondering is there, do you feel that being not following the trends has impacted your business, or do you think it's helped it?
It hasn't made me an overnight success, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, and that's what people are looking for. I mean, you can do it. You can do it within a few months. You can buy a camera, you can set up a website, go on a couple of workshops, and you can set up a photography business within a couple of months and earn money. But for me, that's never been the case. I've never once did I think that what I was doing, right, in the start, when I had a studio, I was doing it for the money. And as I said, in those 5 years that I was doing that, I had no idea what I was doing. Then after a short break and I suppose like kind of realigning my sights, it was never about the money. It was always about the photography. Okay, I make my living from it now, but this is people have asked me like, well, how do I go from what I'm doing now to what you do? I'm going to lose a lot of followers. Okay, well, go and get another job, man. You know. It wasn't that long ago that I was still driving wagons on a weekend so I could keep a roof over my head, so I could stay true to what I was doing and only shoot in the way that I wanted to shoot. So I don't see it as affecting my business because I've never really had a business. Photography is just something that I do, and most of the time I get paid for that because I've done it on my own terms. What I do in the way that I shoot, people are under no illusion about what it is that I do and who I am.
A lot of photographers I've spoken to lately have been talking about burnout, and and I guess I'm wondering
burnout in what way?
I guess you're shooting 100 weddings a year. Sorry, there is okay,
2 a week,
maybe. Maybe not 100, but you're shooting a lot of sort of the same thing week in, week out.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just hit a wall where you're not feeling stimulated or growing in any way. Is that something that you have felt, or I'm wondering if because you're completely following your own way, if that doesn't occur?
Well, the thing is, if I was, of course, I would have burnout. If I was shooting 40, 50, 60 weddings a year, and I was doing the same thing at every wedding, right? Well, I need to be there at this time, and I need to get this shot, and I need to organise this shot, and I need to make sure that that's right for this shot. And to be fair, I think that's why a lot of wedding photographers I've seen in the past get angry about guests getting in the way with mobile phones or iPads or like Uncle Bob and stuff like that, because the photographer only has a set way of working, and somebody's getting in the way of that, and they're not getting the shot that they want, and poor photographers are all upset that he didn't get the shot that he wanted, so he could then market himself to other people to give them the same shot, which I kind of find it's a little bit backwards as far as progression. I think people do need to take a step back to move forward, but I've at the most only ever shot like 20 weddings a year. And that was a few years ago. Now I'm shooting about 10 to 15 at the most. Yeah. And no, like, I'm not getting burnout because for me, I mean, there's a whole thing about documentary wedding photographers or wedding photojournalism, and most wedding photographers are neither of those things. But for me, wedding photography itself is a documentary project. It's a long-term project. So it's all adding to my body of work as far as weddings are concerned. And no, every wedding's exciting for me, man. I'm there to look for photographs. I'm there to make photographs. I'm there to, as I say, add to my body of work, which in turn I would hope will in the future contribute to photography.
Yeah.
So
okay.
No, man. In burnout, I've got to walk the dog twice a day. That gets on my nerves sometimes, but making photographs, that's the easy stuff.
Don't give that dog 100 walks a year. Is the solution. I guess I'm wondering more broadly than just weddings. Why are you a photographer?
Why am I a photographer? Well, that is a broad one. Why a photographer or why a wedding photographer?
A photographer.
Okay, well, as I said, the reason that I got into photography was because I thought I would be cool. I thought people would think that I was cool and it was a good. 15 years ago, you could tell people you were a photographer and it's like, all right, cool. Now you tell people you're a photographer and they fucking roll their eyes. It's like, oh, not another one. So that's why I did it in the first instance. And what happened after I'd had a little break, after about 5 years, and got back into photography, then I started to become curious about kind of people, and curious about the history of photography and documentary photography. And the more that I learned and tried to figure out what it is that I was doing, the more I was learning about myself. And this is me in my early 30s, who up until then had absolutely no direction in life, had nobody to tell me kind of right from wrong, and I pretty much had to make my own way, and I was flailing around in the wind somewhat. And once I started to gain an interest in the history of photography and start to wonder, it was like, man, I know something about something. I actually know something about something. And through the study of that taught me about what I was capable of. And the more that I was photographing people, it was a study of people. And that study of people taught me more about myself. So it's kind of snowballed from there. And now it's just this thing that I have to do. And the subject is kind of unimportant at the moment. It's more a kind of study. It's a study into myself, man. And it's made me, it was a fundamental change in me as a human being. And I felt that because of that, it was something that I really had to pursue. And now that I've pursued it for this long, I realize that there is so much more I can give and so much more further to go with photography. So it's now become, as I said before, it's now, I see photography. I never saw it up until maybe 6 months, even a year ago. I never saw it as anything as something that I just did and for my own benefit. But now I'm looking at it more of as more. Now I am looking at it as more of a career.
Yeah. Okay.
So and there are many other things that I could attach to that and go on, but that's the kind of basis of how it happened, and this is what I do now.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like a form of therapy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Self-discovery, man, and that kind of thing. But no, I mean, there are so many, because as any artist should be, you're always refining. So there have been many other thoughts and many other avenues that I've forgotten about that have taken me in a specific direction. And obviously once I'm there and then that blossoms into something else and we move on to something else, then it would take a long time to go back through it all and find all the levels of kind of all of the changes and directions that I've taken to get me to this point. But overall, man, it's, I suppose you could call it therapy, but no, it's just something that I took to. And especially the history and the philosophy of photography was something that I took to more than the pictures, really. Because, as I've said, the pictures are a consequence of the idea. And for me, it's the idea that's paramount.
Yeah. How did you get into the study? Did you study that or just do a lot of self-reading?
Self-reading, really. And it was photographers. I think photographers, I went to photography school when I was like 28 or something like that. And my idea of photography was either landscapes or pretty ladies or, shallow depth of field, perfect rule of thirds compositions and stuff like that. And when I first went to photography school and they showed me books by like Martin Parr or Bruce Gilden or what's that guy's name? It's probably on here somewhere. Mark Cohen. And I'm looking at these photographs and I'm going, that's not what photography is. That none of that stuff made any sense to me. And it wasn't until I started looking into photography and understanding what being an artist meant and understanding about the idea that photographers like Parr and Gilden and even Meriwetz and a plethora of other, it all just started to make sense. And it was confirmation that it was okay just to be yourself and do whatever you wanted. And there were no rules because it's just that perception that's passed down through people who were technicians and people who were all geeky and nerdy. You have to do it like this and you have to do it like that. And obviously it was a realization that I could just do what you want, man. And that was liberating for me. as not just as a photographer, but as I've mentioned before, like as a fucking human being, man. You know?
Yeah. Something you said before was similar to a quote that I found in one of your actually I think it was an interview you did with me a while ago, which you said, I was never given any guidance, direction in my life, and I had to figure it all out myself, which in hindsight was a wonderful gift.
Yes, indeed.
Why do you think it was a wonderful gift?
Because where I am today, it's all my own doing. I've made a shitload of mistakes along the way as well, and there's a greater sense of achievement for me to know that I've done it all on my own back. I've stood on my own 2 feet, and I've made a whole load of mistakes, and it's taken me a long time to get to where I need to be. It's like, man, I'm 45 now. I should have been doing this 15 years ago. But
at least I'm doing it.
All of my life experience and who I am and what I've been through and what I've done in life, that's all part of what comes out the other end. That's all part of the picture. That's all part of the photograph that we see at the end, you know. So if I'd had financial support, if I'd had kind of emotional support in my life, if I'd had direction, then you know that could have been on somebody else's advice rather than figuring it out myself. And as I said, for me, it's much greater reward to know that I really have fucking nobody at all to thank for what I've done apart from myself. You know, I don't owe anybody anything, man.
Yeah. Do you think that, I'm just wondering if this is why you are so willing to stand on your own 2 feet and sort of ignore trends? Yes,
yeah. Without a doubt. Do you know what it is, man? It's like, it comes down to everything. There's so much that goes along with this, the way that people, I've never had a family, and I see the way that the torture and pain that people go through just because somebody is family, and they have to, the things that they have to put up with. And it's like, man, again, I'm so glad that I've never had to deal with that kind of thing. And yeah, I think that I know where I'm coming from, and that's why I can voice my opinion confidently. And I don't really care what people think about that. I care if people like what I do. I care if people get something from anything that I say. But I'm by no means somebody that people should listen to, really. You know, I don't feel that I am some kind of master photographer that could pass on his wisdom. And I'm not like, I don't know, who can we say? David Allen Harvey, you know? I'm not Joel Merriowitz, for God's sake. I've only been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. And I feel like at the moment I'm underqualified to give people guidance on photography. I mean, I can teach photography, which I do and I have done for a long time. I can teach people how to use a camera. I can give people guidance on the things they should be reading and the things they should be looking at. But, you know, I'm not trying to say that my way is the way that it should be done. When it comes down to it, this is the way that I've done it. So and as we said, I've got to this point under my own steam. So I'm confident in what I say, because at the moment it's right. I might find 2 years down the line that it's all bullshit, but hey, that's my prerogative, you know. I'm allowed to contradict myself if I want.
Knowing what you know now, if you were to be starting again shooting weddings,
yes,
what would you do differently?
I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but to be fair, man, what could I have done differently? You know, it's like I did it. I started with weddings because I thought to myself that I'll be able to make some money to work on other projects. It turns out weddings became my project, and through trial and error over a few months, I figured out a way to do it. So I don't think there's anything that at the time that I could have done differently, or looking back now, I would have done differently, because without that kind of failure and success and failure and getting it wrong and trying to figure out what I was doing at the time, and how I was going to do it, then that has developed into what it is that I do now. So it's all just part of the thing, man. It's all the continuum of the learning and the study and the practice that gets me to this point. So I don't know, man. And if I could go back and tell myself anything, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't listen. So it's like, it is what it is, so to speak.
Okay. So this is a quote, but why do you photograph weddings if you don't give two fucks about them?
It's not that I don't give two fucks about weddings themselves. It's what I hope that I'm doing is offering a genuine alternative. The people that I work for don't really give two fucks about weddings either. Most of them are getting married because they love each other very much. Most of them get the family and friends together to celebrate that kind of that marriage and that union of two people. And the reason I say that I don't give two fucks about weddings, because weddings don't mean what they used to mean, man. It's not like the bride and groom haven't seen each other before. And then you get there's a whole industry based around first look, and it's like, yeah, I saw you yesterday, man. It's great, but I'm kind of interested in the tradition and ceremony, but I'm more interested in people and events and social events and situations and interactions and gestures, and again, that's my study of people, which if we do that, then we do learn things about ourselves. So it's not that I don't give two fucks about weddings, I just don't really give two fucks about the wedding industry and the way that people think it should be done.
Yeah, okay. So something just occurred to me then. You said earlier that you didn't really have a family.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, do you think subconsciously there's any link between photographing family events and not having one?
It's I thought about that early on and thought that maybe that was a reason behind it, but I don't think it is. I think that when I look at the families and the interactions of the families, it's just more of a study than it is some sort of longing for.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how different groups of people and different families act, and how, I don't know, some of them are really kind of stern and standoffish with each other. Some are really that's kind of fun, and there's a lot more contact, and there seems to be a lot more love there. But the odd thing is, I found that some of the stern, kind of rigid people in families have cried a lot more at things than the kind of happy-go-lucky, fun, bubbly ones. So, this is it's an interesting study to kind of watch and like understand. And I don't think that has anything to do with me not really having a family, because I see what a state some families are, man, and it's kind of, sometimes we're better off without them, and it's like, but no, do you know what? I've seen some kind of loving great families. It's like, and obviously people must think, even people who have families must look at some families and think, I wish that we were a lot closer like that, or I wish that we had this kind of tight-knit group, or I wish that my parents would do that for me. But then on the other side, and that's people with families, and obviously there's probably people who are in that situation who want something a little less full on, and then you have people who don't have families. So I don't think there's any difference, apart from it's all different, if that makes sense. We're all looking at it from our own perspective, kind of thing.
So how would you define, I normally ask the question, how do you define being a successful wedding photographer, but I'm kind of more interested to ask you, how do you define being a successful photographer?
Well, for me, it's certainly it's nothing to do with monetary gain or kind of big business. I think just being happy, it's being happy in what you do, man, and always kind of striving to be better. And in some ways, the recognition of your peers. But for me, that's got nothing to do with the wedding industry, because there are very few wedding photographers that I actually think are really great photographers. A lot of wedding photographers are really good craftsmen and women, and they can make beautiful photographs. But from a photography standpoint, the way that I understand it, in a more kind of, I suppose, a candid way, there aren't really many great wedding photographers. So, and once I have people outside of the wedding industry and people that I respect as photographers who are like, "You're doing some good work, man," and it's, "Oh yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you for noticing."
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can we define success? Man, I'm happy in what I do, and I think that's a successful thing. You know, I don't have to, I don't have to go to work for a living. I do a lot of work, but I don't have to go to work.
Yeah.
And I can keep a roof over my head, and I certainly don't live a lavish lifestyle in any way, and I'm certainly not kind of rich and famous, but I'm happy in what I do, and I feel like I'm contributing, man, and I believe there's so much more to give. And as far as success, who knows? Will I be successful?
How, when you say you're happy to be contributing, how do you imagine your legacy? You know, what is it going to be? Is it going to look like a book? Is it going to be an exhibition someday? What is it going to be?
Well, the thing is, I haven't really thought about any kind of legacy. I think that, if we look at, from what I understood through my study into the history of photography, is we are part of the history of photography now, if we choose to be. Mm-hmm. So whether I've got an exhibition next year in June at the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol. Nice. So Martin Parr contacted me a few months ago, said that he really liked what I was doing. Long story short, not a short story long, we ended up meeting, having a chat, and he offered me an exhibition at his at the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol. So, I mean, that's going to happen anyway. I don't really feel that's going to be part of a legacy, but that to me is part of the success of me being a photographer. Mm. If we go back to successes, for a photographer like Martin Parr, who changed my perception on photography and changed my understanding of, in turn, changed my understanding of who I was as a human being all them years ago, to now recognize what it is that I'm doing and exhibit my work in a documentary photography gallery. That's a success, man. Mm. That has to be a success. And all the accolades that I have from the wedding industry, best 100 wedding photographers in the world, as cool as that is, Nicholas, it's like, yeah, it's like, man, in comparison, that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. I get that. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not like pissing on that.
There's no comparison.
Like Martin Parr's going, yeah, fucking, I like what you're doing. So to me, that's a success. I think now that that's happening, I'm considering where I go from this point. So for me, I feel like it's been a humbling experience to put this together for the exhibition. And have this recognition from people outside of the wedding industry, because now, after 7 or 8 years of going down this path, I realise that I'm just starting on another one, and I pretty much know nothing. So where this goes from here will determine kind of what any kind of legacy will be. And I mean, I have to consider where I'm going from here. So I don't know, man, I'll be dead and gone. So I just want to, hopefully I'll be, I don't know, included somewhere in something. So they can go, all right, 50, 100 years ago, this guy lived shooting weddings, but he did that. This guy lived, he did that, and he did this, and he did that. And weddings certainly isn't the be-all and end-all, because I already have other projects on the go, and I already have other things that are kind of gathering speed at the moment, So I don't think I'll stop shooting weddings, but...
Yeah. What are those things you've got going on?
Well, I'm starting to do some work for the BBC, behind the scenes work and on set work. So
Okay.
it's all. I think that the wedding stuff that I shoot is behind the scenes work, really. So on set for BBC productions, shooting behind the scenes work, and it's that's starting to move forward, and I'm starting to pick up more and more work from that. And I'm starting a project with a local fire brigade that I literally started yesterday. So, and I have a couple of other projects that I have in mind once things start moving along. So, yeah, some things are holding other things up, but it's all behind the scenes documentary style work, you know.
Yeah, yeah. How did Martin Parr come across your work?
So I'm lying in bed one morning, and I always have a quick flick through my emails on the morning, and there's one came up. I was speaking at a photography conference in Barcelona. I didn't realize until I got there that it was predominantly wedding photographers and blah blah blah. And I read halfway down and just kind of went, somebody said that I should look at your work, and like, all right, okay, I'll get back to that. And I was just having to scroll through, and Helen's up getting ready for work and making coffee and all of that kind of stuff. And I scrolled back and I went, I'll read that email, see who that was. Martin Parr.
I've heard of him.
Martin Parr sent me a fucking email. So yeah, it was. So he was at a photography conference. Didn't know that it was predominantly wedding photographers, and Martin has shot a lot of kind of wedding stuff. He just turns up at weddings and asks if we can make some photographs, and he's done that pretty much all over the world. So he pulled some of those images together, showed them what he did as far as wedding photography was concerned, and he said there was more than one person who'd said you need to have a look at Ian Weldon's work, because okay. Martin was telling the audience that you need to think about your own kind of style and your relationship to the subject rather than the subject. And shoot it in a more kind of documentary style in more than one person. So he's in the conversations that I've had with him, he said that when a few people had said that I had to look, so I did. And then the next morning sent me an email saying you like what I did, and then offers me an exhibition, which is pretty fucking amazing, man.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. Man, kind of, yeah. For me, it's probably the highest kind of reward at the moment that I can get for the kind of work that I've done. For it to be recognised by a photographer that, as I said, had such a huge, among many others, but had such a huge impact on my life and my career and my understanding of what it is that I was supposed to be doing. Yeah, it's a great thing, man.
Yeah, it's great. Did you say he gate crashes weddings?
Yeah. If it's a wedding, he's
no
around,
idea.
he'll just walk in, can I take some pictures?
Brilliant.
Yeah. And he had some great stuff as well. But yeah, it's a good time. It's a cool time. But as I said, it's a humbling experience, man. You know, to realise that now there's a whole new avenue and a whole new world has opened up. I feel like I've kind of popped my head out from wedding photography, and it's like, all right, there's all this shit as well. This is great.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to?
When?
Today, this lifetime, the next 5 years, whatever.
What am I looking forward to? Man, well, I'm certainly looking forward to the exhibition next year. I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to see where this photography journey takes me. Yeah. And that's probably paramount in everything that I do now. I just want to see where it goes. And I'm becoming painfully aware that, man, I'm 45-year-old now. You know, how long have I got left? And I fucking enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, someone said to me a while ago that all the great photographers, they're all over 40. You know, they've had to put the time in to get there.
Yeah. You need that life experience, you know, as well.
Yeah. If people want to follow you, where are you hanging out? Are you on Instagram?
Yes, I'm on Instagram as Ian J. Weldon. They can follow me there. You can also find, I also co-host a podcast with Bradley Hanson called Outerfocus Podcast. It's not about gear. and
It's not about
trends.
Or gear, yeah.
Gear.
Yeah.
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 It's about ideas and conversations, and we've had Martin Parr on.
Yeah.
We've had Ed Templeton, David Carroll, Nicky Boone. We've had some great conversations with some ace photographers. So
yeah, no, I've heard it. It's
Outerfocus.
great.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Outerfocuspodcast.com. There is an Instagram, Outerfocus Podcast, but if you just have a look for all of that kind of, you'll find us.
And your website?
You can follow me on ianweldon.com.
Okay. Are you on Facebook?
All pretty simple stuff. Yes, I am. Ian Weldon. Just search Ian Weldon, and it's like,
you find it, yeah.
all over the place. All kinds of crazy interviews and stuff like that. But yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm doing, man.
Yeah. Ian, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure.
Take care. See you.